Hey everyone, welcome to the Vegan Stew. And we're super excited for our show tonight because we're going to talk about climate. Now, we understand that climate isn't as juicy as food or animals, but it's incredibly important. And we really want you to take away a lot from this show so that this planet exists for future generations and we don't just keep going and killing it. So let's talk about virtualvegfestlive.com. You can go there, you can enter our wish pond contest, click the contest tab. It's different now. You have to upload a photo that highlights one of our sponsors. Who are those sponsors? Well, let me see. Terra Seed, Hodo Foods, Veg Key, Follow Your Heart, Revolution Gelato, Rebel Cheese, Cinnaholic, Fabulous, and Bernie Wild's Adventure Sauce. That's 9. It's 9 sponsors. You can even post a photo of something with Virtual Veg Fest or Triangle Veg Fest. We won't say no. Get creative. Have fun with it. It highlights our sponsors and it shows us that you're either buying their products, you're having them in your house. You can even take pictures of them in the store and just put that up. Whatever you want to do. Get entered to win one of these really cool 9 prize packs that we give away monthly. I'm just having you do something different to do it. So please do that. Let's say thank you to Bernie Wild's Adventure Sauce for being our sponsor for the month of July. We really appreciate them. They are a local company here in Raleigh-Durham, and the sauce is really good. I'll just plug Fabulous for a second because if they sold their sauces in gallon sizes, I mentioned this with Ellen on Tuesday, if they sold their sauces in gallon sizes, I would buy them because it's incredible. Easily do that, fabulous.com. Well, not the gallon sizes, but definitely check them out. Other than that, please go to our YouTube and subscribe and hit the little notification bell. I see 2 people watching right now from Virtual Veg Fest Live YouTube. Thank you. And, hit the notification bell on all our YouTubes. Ellen has one. Kimberly has one. Sangeeta has one. We've got a few. So easily do that. Simple thing to do. Follow our social media. We really appreciate it. And we have a special guest, which is Rebecca Allen. And I'm pretty sure she's coming in to us from Texas. So we get to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. And of course, if you want to be part of the conversation, to put your comments or questions into the little box and we will address them while we're live through the set where we are streaming. And I'll see if I can find if somebody else makes a comment to make sure we address that too. So here we go. Let's bring everybody in. We have Ellen Jaffe-Jones, veganvegcoach.com. And there's Rebecca BJ Allen. We have Kimberly from Did You Bring the Hummus? Kelly from Climate Healers and the Vegan Apler. And no, this is Goth and the Raw and Voth from Fantame and his name's gotten longer.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, let me see, Stu Crew. I really didn't think. Oh, good evening. Hi, Diane. Thanks again for watching and supporting a whole bunch of our shows. So, there we go. I don't have a question to ask, but we want to talk about a couple of things before we start. And Ellen, I'm going to throw it at you. Let's talk about the Beagles.
Okay. Can you hear me?
You can.
Okay, good. So I'm on the board of Florida Voices for Animals, and it crossed our email chain in the last week, maybe 2, that there was a breeding facility that was liberated. Not sure about all the details, how, why, other than it was a testing lab for cosmetics. And I think one of the best responses I saw on social media during the week was, just try the cosmetic on your face. If it breaks out, don't use it. We don't need animals. And so anyway, there's just thousands of beagles that now need a home. They've been distributed to various humane societies around the country. So if you know anybody who would like to adopt, contact your local humane society.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a beagle rescue that's in Charlotte, I believe, who's come to our events and brought the beagles that are for adoption that have been part of the testing environment, as I want to say community, but that's just not a very friendly place, is it? And they're the best dogs. Dogs, when they go through stuff like that, somehow, some way, they still like humans. So if you're open to adopting an animal, please do that. And we would be remiss to mention that some records were broken in the world this week, today, yesterday. Some amazing records that actually made, let's see, the runways of airports melt, because in England, in London, it summer temperatures typically hover around 70 something degrees Fahrenheit, and they went to 104.4. And nobody has air conditioning. It's just not, when your highest temperature is 70 something on average, you can probably get through like a few days of heat. But 104 point, that's hot. And that's just without any humidity or anything else.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I have family in the UK, and they're like, "Is this what you bloody go through?" I was like, "Yes, Auntie, this is welcome to the United States." And it's like, yes and no, because it's mostly, it rains. That's what mostly when you go to the UK, it's rainy, or it's gray. But I mean, the entire United States as well is about to hit over 100 degrees, every single state. And there's no one that can say anything about, climate change not being real, especially if the lanes are melting. It's like something out of The Simpsons. So, I mean, it's scary. But I mean, I don't know. You can't tell people to take note anymore. You see it, you gotta act. We're literally running out of time. Like we're running out if we don't take it seriously.
And the biggest thing is when they talk about the projections of what they see happening because of how we're destroying the planet, is we're ahead of it. It's not something we want to be ahead of. We're ahead of it being so hot. They didn't project this until further in the future. And we're doing such a good job that, the northern, Kelly, what are your temperatures in Canada? Because the northern part of our country is 100 degrees.
Yeah, the inside of my house today was almost 29 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. And so it's really muggy out. We went outside today. It's really muggy. I could not sleep last night. It was just way too hot. So, it's happening here too. Definitely.
That's 84.2 degrees Fahrenheit. That's really warm for a house. Kimberly.
So I just saw an article, and Rebecca or Kelly, maybe you can speak to this a little bit more. I just saw an article today about a team of Scottish scientists that have been studying the plankton in the ocean, in the Atlantic Ocean, and that they've discovered that like 90% of the plankton are extinct. Mm. And plankton, as far as what I learned from this quick article, are kind of they sustain life. And I think not just in the ocean, it's kind of part of our whole thing. So if we're already at that point, what do we need to do, or how can we act immediately to try to fix it? I don't know.
Yeah, we're all doing what I think is the single most important thing that we can do, but we'll talk about other solutions, because I think the biggest misconception that non-vegans have towards veganism when we talk about climate and being vegan is like, we don't think that there's any other solution, that we're just like, oh, just go vegan and everything's gonna be fine. And no one ever says that. No vegan ever says that, right? And I'd love for Rebecca to get into the bathtub analogy that Dr. Salesh Rao from Climate Healers talks about, because he specifically says we got to fight the burning machine and the killing machine together. We have to do this together if we don't drown, right? And it's a fascinating analogy. So hopefully that BJ could talk about that. But that was the question I was going to start off with, is just like, when you talk to people, I think now with this heat wave, people are starting to kind of like, oh, climate change, I heard about it, but like, how much do people actually think about climate change in their carbon footprint? We kind of have just been instilled of the reduce, reuse, recycle thing for so long, but we know that that's not going to save us. and it's BS too. The amount of plastic that actually doesn't get recycled. So we've been fooled, right? And we're continuing to be fooled from big ag and big oil and all the bigs.
Ellen. I see Ellen's been wanting to talk for a little bit.
So Paul Watson, who's been at our Veg Fest for a couple of years, and he's been very public about, when the oceans die, we die. And plankton is the single, as I understand it, the single biggest contributor to oxygen, which we kind of need to breathe. So when that goes, it's more than just being the low on the food chain for fish. It is actually a supplier of oxygen. And, I just stress that, and I spend every waking moment, which now is increasingly at nighttime, stressing about all this stuff. How do we connect these dots for people? The United Nations has been saying for at least a couple of decades that weaning ourselves off of animal agriculture is the single most important thing we can do to reduce our carbon footprint. And it's not only about feeding the animals, it's the land, water, and resources that we are using to clear cut our forests that supply also oxygen to the atmosphere. It's just all these dots have to be connected. And I don't know, all each of us can do is just keep talking about that in our circle of friends and beyond.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem that we have is what I see are unalignment. And when you have numbers that are unaligned, it creates doubt. And that's the best thing that these companies can have to make people not do anything. Because you're like, who do you trust? What number do you believe? Well, I'm not going to do it all because what if I did this and then it's not really doing anything and blah, 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 so you're completely right about like how do we connect these dots. And Rebecca, I saw you had your hand up.
Now's hand's been up for a while though.
Oh, sorry, Nouse.
It's just dark on dark.
Yeah.
I am a ninja. So I was just my little one went back upstairs, but I was like, this is something I just thought you guys were gonna delight out of. So you guys were talking about plankton, which is what we're talking about, and he's watching SpongeBob. So he heard plankton, and he's standing like across me with his Kindle, like that's who that is. That's who that is. I'm like, okay, well, kind of get that it's underwater. That character's name is Plankton. Nice kind of reference. But something that I did want to kind of say is like, I wonder back home, because in Nigeria we're used to very high temperatures. Nigeria, the equator runs right through it. If you asked me which would I prefer after living in Vegas for a little bit to Nigeria, give me Nigeria any day because there's no humidity. But we were having a conversation with my relatives down there too, and there's like no change there, only because it's not. I guess the continent is really good. It's built for that, I guess I would say. The rise in the temperatures, because we're used to it being in the hundreds, it's not foreign to us. Now, when we do see a higher peak, then we got a problem. But Nigeria is advanced and industrial. You do have like every region or every country you go to, you have your traditional. So you still have, those that have not embraced the industrialized side, of things. And you have more cultural, and then you have the cities. And it's just really interesting to see how they're handling it because we're it's immaculate. Like what you see if you go to the main cities, it's just immaculate. And I think that there is a greater understanding around the world than here in the United States. And some of it has to do with leadership. Some of it has to do with just people who just don't even think that it exists. I was like, you went to school, right? Right? Science, right? So, you feel like you're punching at the air sometimes, or putting your head against a brick wall, but we just have to keep going, just keep talking about it, keeping active. Actions speak louder than words, beats the doors down, we have to do whatever we have to do and just keep at it.
No, Rebecca, definitely. You need to unmute though.
Oh, thank you. I gave a talk to 350.Austin recently, and during that time, birds were falling out of the sky in India. And I was talking to a friend in New Mexico, and he said it's happening there too. So it is not just the people that are being so stressed, it's all the wildlife. And we have so many stressors. You know, the deforestation is stressing them, the fishing is stressing them. One of the things I heard on the radio yesterday was that there are more deaths from heat than any other land related thing, like hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, all of those together, more deaths from heat. And it is heat with high humidity. And so we do have to watch out for that. But where is that coming from? You know, I'm thinking about what you said, Ellen, about connecting the dots with people. People know they don't like trees being cut down, so they can get into deforestation. But can they get into understanding that those forests are helping the earth and the atmosphere and the greenhouse gases? Because see, they're not counted as emissions. When they count emissions and all the emissions that people are doing, they don't count all the benefits of the forests. And so they're being cut down without being counted. The IPCC doesn't count them. Other organizations don't count the benefit. And so as they're clearing these forests, we are raising emissions, but it's not something that is producing emissions. We're raising emissions because we are removing the trees that are causing it. And when I think about Europe being on fire, and I've seen a lot of videos of that and their heat wave, I remember in Brazil, one of their number one consumers is Europe. That's where they sell most of their beef. And Nicaragua sells grass-fed beef to the United States. And then I just read 2 weeks ago, the billionaire from Australia went to Florida, and he's buying 60 million acres. Can't be 60 million, must be 60,000 acres. Yeah, 60,000 acres of pine forests so he can clear it and have grass-fed beef. So we are still in that mode of thinking we can have things, we just have to do it nicer. Let's just be nicer to the animals. Let's have grass-fed, and not thinking about that whole connection.
One thing, Rebecca, can you respond to Dilla in regards to, he asked why the birds are falling?
They're exhausted from the heat. That's my understanding, not being a biologist, but animals were falling down in India too. And so they said, if you're going to come to India, please bring water, bring little droppers, so that when you find a bird that's on the ground that can't fly, that you can give them water. The people also, because it is so hot there, they're using more fans and more electricity, which you know, India has been in the news because they want to continue developing the industrial, you know, more energy use to keep cool. But if the rest of the world keeps heating it up, it makes sense that they would want to have fans in those conditions. I hope that's as best I know about the animals, the birds.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ellen?
Just to tag on to that, I think that my daughter lives in London, and you know, the reason we're seeing so many human fatalities in Europe is because they aren't set up with air conditioners, and they're not prepared to deal with this kind of heat. So just the whole power grid is really stressed in ways that it's just not used to.
Good, Kelly.
Yeah, I was just wanted to quickly to what Rebecca was saying about like how India wants to use more energy, you know, and you know, we're pointing fingers at different countries, but it's not India, it's not Africa that's creating these emissions. It's our privileged West, right? And we want to continue, like you said, doing what we do. We don't want to tighten the belt and do things, you know. We just want to say, well, you got to do it too, and you got to do it too if we got to do it. And that thinking again is just so wrong, right? You know, we all have to realize we have to make sacrifices and acknowledge our privilege.
So remember when the storm went from the south of the United States all the way to New York? And it was so ferocious. Was it a couple of years ago now? Maybe it might have been last year. I don't know. And it kept its speed and intensity all the way, like all over the country, and got to New York and caused that really horrible flooding where people died in their basements. A lot of people had basement apartments in New York, whether they're legal or not. A lot of people have basement apartments because it's very expensive to live. So people add apartments to their homes. A lot of them are in the basement. The stairways went down, the water went down, people drowned. And one of the things that came out of that, it was last year because we talked about it on the stew. Because we're like almost a year old, just so you know, which is awesome. But people started talking about climate change. But the politicians in New York were thinking about, well, what can we do to, like suddenly it was a problem because people died. Because the weather caused people to die. So here we are with people dying from heat. And I think about the people who have to work outside. They have no choice. That's their job. Their job is to work outside. And it's absolutely horrendous. And did we get to the point where they say, is this the tipping point? Is what I'm trying to ask. Is this because the floods in New York and Manhattan going underwater and people dying in Queens and Brooklyn made them start to say the words climate change. Climate change is like on the news every day now. The words are being said every single day. What's not being said is what to do about it. That's the piece that they're not talking about, because I don't know if they know what to do about it. We need to lower the temperature of the planet. Okay. Well, how do you get people to do that? They are so afraid to say what that is. I saw Kimberly first. Everybody just talk.
I think where I feel discouraged is that I think this is going to have to be such a significant culture shift, especially here in the US for sure. Kind of the thought process is, well, I live in this free country and I can do whatever I want because I live in this free country. I shouldn't have to sacrifice my, things that make me happy, things I find convenient. I shouldn't have to do that for other people. And even when you try, what about, if they have kids or they have grandkids, like what kind of world are you leaving for them? They'll be like, yeah, but that's not like actually going to happen. Or it's still not enough for them to say, you know what, I will change how I operate. I think it is such a significant culture shift. It frightens me a little bit that it won't change.
Kelly, because I think you were up before I finished.
Kimberly and I are on the same wavelength, because I was thinking what will make people change is when these countries of privilege start getting climate refugees there. And they're gonna be right, and then they'll be like, "Well, wait a minute, all these people, like you said, So I think that's it. That will be the wake up call. But at that point, it's gonna be too late, right? I mean, we might already be too late, And if you listen to Dr. Rao from, we have until 2026, and then all the land mammals are expected to go extinct, and then we're screwed. So I know Rebecca can talk more about that as well.
No.
You know what will be okay? It is very scary. You think, and for people to think, there's the mentality of certain people, besides ones that are deniers of the very fact what's happening before you, is also, well, yeah, it's the future generations issue. So, I mean, we're not going to be here. I mean, let them deal with it. And then when you have this generation who is looking like, okay, we would like to see tomorrow. We would like to make sure that there is still wildlife. We care. We have future generations also to think about because we're not selfish. You have one person who stops the whole thing, Manchin, who decided to just go ahead, and it doesn't make sense that one person holds so much power. It really doesn't. And he flipped the script because he said, whatever was going on in regards to one of these deals, he refused to go through with it because, he was like, I'm not going to sign anything. So Biden worked with him. They pulled out whatever he wanted and everything like that. And then right when he had what he wanted, he said, nope. It was one vote that blocked for the climate change initiative for things to go forward. And then I know that this sounds like maybe just like, it's not even a joke. I thought of it at first as a joke. Now I don't even do that. People loved Netflix streaming everything. Netflix or all of these streaming services, let somebody for like, I don't care, maybe 3 or 4 months, nothing to stream but disaster movies. That's it. That's it. That's all you have to watch. I don't care. Netflix is showing it. That's it. Oh, we'll go to Hulu. Same thing.
Right.
It's crucial. People just, whatever it's going to take, and you have to kind of utilize whatever is available, because unfortunately, some people don't want to, they don't want to hear you. They want to see visually or, things like that. I'm not saying subliminal messaging, but the other thing is that the media doesn't help, because I find a lot of things out from TikTok, because you have a lot of people who are within the field that are like, you're not seeing this on television. We're going to tell you and show you what is happening.
Yeah, just watch the movie Don't Look Up. That's it. It's the only movie you have to watch. Watch the movie Don't Look Up. Go find it if you haven't watched it yet. Just watch Don't Look Up. And then see where you fall on the line of the people in that movie. Ellen, and then Rebecca.
So it's just this whole concept of NIMBY, not in my backyard, but when it starts happening in your backyard, YouTube is full of some pretty good environmental videos. Have you all seen the one? I think it's been pretty viral in the last couple of days of the UPS driver delivering a package caught on security camera, collapsing from the heat and staggering out. So when these kinds of things show, oh my gosh, my packages aren't getting delivered, maybe then people will start making the connection. It's just so sad that it takes that sometimes for people to start connecting the dots. Just for a little historical perspective, I was a media consultant after I left TV news, and I was doing some work for the folks from the federal government who were trying to enforce the Endangered Species Act. And during that time, when I forgot which Bush was president, but the whole government had to redact from any federal documents the word global warming, or the phrase global warming. And that's when it was changed to climate change, because we don't want to upset people too much. And, it was happening then. It's happening even more now. And we just have to keep throwing the science out there as best we can, in connecting those dots.
Climate is changing because of global warming.
Right.
And animal agriculture, nothing like that. Yeah. Rebecca.
The thing I wanted to say is I'm hearing more stories on the mainstream media now that are saying human caused global warming. So again, that's something we all need to incorporate into our rants.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed that I have acquaintances and people that go to groups that I'm in who say, well, I'm taking a trip to Alaska. I'm taking a vacation here and there. And it feels to me like they are not aware. And yet, if you ask them, are you aware of climate change? They will say yes. But they're not aware. They haven't looked up at the carbon footprint of that. I looked at when the ice shelf was melting in Antarctica. Somebody measured up the pounds of carbon that are used if you take a trip there, because there are visitors there. People want to see them falling. It's a lot. I don't remember the number, but it's a big footprint. And then you have people, Extinction Rebellion, which I have been a part of, and I think I'm not talking about them, except that some of their posts right now naturally are going to be out there and in the news because they are concerned about the climate. But what is not being mentioned is the animal agriculture part. They're still focused on the transportation part and the fossil fuels. And that's what Kelly referred to earlier is this engineer, Dr. Salish Rao, did a bathtub analogy so that one faucet is putting in the fossil fuels from the carbon from the fossil fuel industry, and the other faucet is from the trees, the deforestation. And if you stop all the fossil fuels, you will actually heat up the earth in the first year, because associated with fossil fuels are sulfates, and sulfates cool the earth and they dissipate real fast. So as soon as you turn down the carbon, you lose the sulfur dioxides, which are cooling, and the earth will heat up. We have to do the animal agriculture along to cool the earth. And then also we have to cut down the fossil fuels, but we need to be cooler first because, this was a theory that was put out by the father of climate change, James Hansen. He called it the Faustian Bargain. If you cut fossil fuels, you're going to heat up the earth, but you have to cut them. And they only focused on the you have to cut them part. So it's something that we have to somehow, like you say, educate, get people to realize that deforestation, if they focus on deforestation and realize that's not being counted, that's one of the ways to cool the earth. Yesterday, I heard John Doyle of the European Commission speak, and he's in meetings this week with people that are concerned about climate change, along with Native American Hopi and Navajo. And he gave a powerful speech, but he said, just like when he was with his mother who was ill, first you spend a lot of time trying every solution you can, and then you quit spending time and you just sit with her and be with her. And he's at this point where he is feeling like there's nothing we can do. We have to just be with each other on the earth. But the person who spoke after him said there are things we can do. And I feel like for me, that's what I have to keep doing, is that we can keep doing things, but not just a scatter shot of things like, oh, turn off the water when you brush your teeth. Okay, it's a good thing, but it's not big enough. And so that's why going vegan is so significant, because it could actually free up, let's see, how much is it? 40% of the land on Earth that's now being used to feed animals. So, I mean, there's a wonderful land chart from the IPCC where they show that 37% of ice-free land is used for grazing animals and another 6% for growing grains. Well, that's a lot of land that could be full of pastures, wild vegetation that's not being cleared. So that's what I wanted to be able to share with you, the significance of it.
If I can quickly add to the bathtub analogy of like why it has to be animal agriculture that we stop first, which is the killing machine, is people don't know this, because we always hear CO2, we need to get rid of CO2s, but methane is 87% more potent than CO2. And so that is why if we stop animal agriculture, methane is more potent, but it lasts a short amount of time. Carbon dioxide, like once it's in the atmosphere, it's here for thousands of years. CO2's here, methane's here for 10 years, and then it turns into carbon dioxide. So we're cooling, like BJ was saying, like by doing animal agriculture, we'll cool it as we figure out how to safely reduce CO2. But nobody talks about methane, or if they do, they're talking about leaky pipes and all these things. And, it's like fixing the leaky pipes of the world is not going to solve it. It's animal agriculture. And our population is expected to get to, 10 billion? And all those people are going to be middle class. They're going to want to eat their meat, So we can't continue. Like, we have no land left. Yeah. We have no land left for animals. Like, how are we going to do this?
Really important point about the land is if it wasn't animals being grown or raised on that land, it could have food, and that food that feeds the cattle and the chickens and all the animals that we consume would make it so there's no hunger. No human would be hungry on this planet if the food that we fed the animals that we consume, which is another Celeste Rao, is one of my favorite stories that Celeste will actually share, is about the siblings and the food and the feeding of the animals, and not feeding the siblings, but actually the oldest one takes the food and feeds the farm animals, because that's what they eat. And then the 7 other siblings don't eat at all because they took all the food to give to the farm animals that they're raising. And the siblings are like, but I'm hungry. And one of the cool things about the analogy with the cooling and the filling and the removing is there's a baby in there, like the cutest horrible looking baby. It's really neat. You definitely should look at Celeste's stuff because I've had him on Virtual Vet Dress Live and nobody watched because nobody cares about the climate, even amongst our vegan community. It's the bottom of the bottom. And they want food and they want to talk about animals. And they don't tend to put together the third piece of that platform that's probably the most important of all three. Right? No.
Thank you for touching upon that in regards to the community. Wearing the shirt. Sometimes, okay. It's the same thing as when you're saying, you're part of a community where this is affecting, and it's more than just saying that you're vegan. It's more than just wearing the shirt. That type of thinking within our own community, the vegan community, has me just as heated as when somebody wears a band shirt and then has no clue who the band is. That drove me nuts. It's like, if you're wearing it just for the design, cool, appreciate the design. But in this aspect here, this affects you. And this is where intersectionality is lost, I think, with the vegan community, because they're just like, I'm doing it for the animals. Okay, so think, you're a sentient being. You're fighting for the lives of those on 4 legs or those that fly. What about you? You are included in this. So if you have to understand that not only do you have to make sure that you're doing everything possible to save the lives of these animals, get people's thinking to embrace plant-based, to embrace not slaughtering, because just like Kelly said, methane, factory farming, all of those gases, that's what they're coming from to harm us the most. They don't understand that. And then you have to look at, okay, the environment affects, where intersectionality comes in is global warming is affecting the climate, which is affecting the grounds for growing food for both humans and animals. In the grocery store, that stuff doesn't just magically pop up there. You have immigrants who are in the field. They are dropping, their lives matter as well, so it affects them. The cost of food is skyrocketing for produce. And because of the way that the world is warming up, it's not at its best. Like it's horrible what you find now. It's a cycle that some people see. It's like this. And we within the vegan community should be the biggest proponents of saying, we got to do this, and introducing, and stop just thinking that, it's going to be good for a photo op to go in a farm and take a picture with a cow and say, I did it. No, it has to be taking full action. You have to realize how dire this is. There's a lot of reasons for doing it. You can't be selfish in your thought. You can do it because you're like, I want to help the animals and help them to thrive. They need to be able to feed off of the land to thrive. Whether it's on a larger scope, doing it for next generations. I have children. I think about it and I worry every day. Every day. There's not one moment where you feel like you're letting them down on a daily basis, because you're like, well, we're leaving this to them. We failed them. And you have that type of feeling, and then you kind of have to say, okay, all hope is not lost. What do we do? You just have to be bold and push forward. But I really do want for the vegan community to stop fighting against intersectionalism. We're all in this together. Be you a meat eater, be you, just for the animals, be you doing it for everyone, be acknowledging marginalized, people. You're going to go. It's not like you go to one place that's completely, this isn't a Marvel movie. You're not going to go to, the rainbow, the bridge. It's not Valhalla. You're not going where something else is special, and you're pushed to one side and you're going to be pushed to here, whatever your belief. Let's live in the now and protect what we have now before it really is just too late. And we cannot even utter the words, there's possibility, there is hope. That's it.
Kelly.
I would love to tell a story of an attempt here in Toronto quite a few years ago to be intersectional with the environmental community. And it was 350.org, and they were having their march, and we had asked to be part of their march, and I can't remember what happened, either they declined us or they ignored us or something. So we just showed up.
Good.
We just showed up with our signs. And the sad part is there were so few people at the 350 march that we just, in numbers, overpowered them. And on top of that, we had a 100-foot sign that said, "Go vegan for the climate," or something related to that. And we tried to get on stage to talk about the animal agriculture component. They would not give us any time of day. So it was very frustrating. Granted, I understand, very, very frustrating. So when we marched, we were very much a major part of this march. It looked like a vegan march, especially because we had all our vegan signs. And that was really upsetting the people, because that was their first year where they were really working with the Indigenous community, and they really wanted to highlight, like, give them the platform. And they were having drums, and they were drumming "Water is Life." And the vegans brought their own drums and started drumming "Vegan is Life." And at the time, you're so caught up in, like, we're giving it to them, like, oh, it was so wrong. It was so wrong to do, right? It was so disrespectful. We could have handled that a lot different. I understand the frustration of, like, us not being heard and them not wanting to talk about animal agriculture, but we definitely handled it the wrong way, because we lost an ally. And at the end of it, we had so many fights with so many people in that organization, because they were just disgusted with what we did, right? And looking back, they had a right, not to say that we shouldn't have been there at all, but we should have been more mindful of that interconnectedness and the respect, right, of what was going on, and, have our message, sure, but when they want, the water, and, like, we should be supporting that. We always, like, what I see with the vegan community is we come with our own agenda, and we don't, like, we should just be going to these places and supporting them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Supporting that message, and be true allies. And we didn't. We all came up with our vegan shirts and 100-foot sign and took over.
Totally appreciate you, like, acknowledging that and apologizing, because that's missed a lot. That's actually happening a lot, even with what's going on with Roe v. Wade and the approaches that we have with you're catching on TikTok in regards to how Black women are affected, how people, how BIPOC community. And you have TikTokers who are not of color who are using that same song and running with it. And we're like, we understand that we all have to come together in this because it does affect all of us. But the lyrics in Tupac's song for "Keep Your Head Up" that has nothing to do with you. You have to listen, okay? Listen to the lyrics, because he's addressing his sisters and that men need to do better, and we cannot allow this to happen in regards to forced rape, things like that, sexual assault, and what it's doing in regards to Roe v. Wade and how women are going to be forced to do this. So we've had, like, some creators that have actually apologized. There's something human and humane for acknowledging privilege, acknowledging that you were wrong. There's nothing, we appreciate that more than if you're just like, we're coming in unity. No. We can, but you have to, if it's drumming circles, especially with the connection that the indigenous people have to this land, because they were here first, it's appreciated. There's so much work to do that you're just kind of like around the scope. Everything can be overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. It's not can be, it is. And that's why you sit here and you ask that question of how do you make people understand and not be so shell shocked that they don't do anything, because they just kind of accept that's the way it is. And also, depending on your age, it's not your problem. But it could be, because it's easy to say, well, let's count out the years. And by the time this happens, I might be like 70 something. So will I really care at that point? But do I care about my loved ones that will still be here? Yes. But I don't, people are so selfish. People in this country are so selfish that, I mean, trying to get people to like not flush the toilet every time. That's, I mean, funny story with Ellen. When Ellen stayed with us in Wilmington, she was like, well, overnight, are we flushing toilets or are we not flushing toilets? Because of the sound when people are sleeping. I have not forgotten that. I found that to be adorable. But that's like the simplest, minute thing that you can do. And the greatest thing that you can do is to stop eating animals. I mean, that's the greatest thing you can do. And there's so many choices now. There's so many foods. There's so many options. It's really hard to miss eating animals when you start not eating them because you have diversity. But people don't want to give up their guns. People just want to keep doing what they do. And I don't, to go back to the school shooting thing, because we don't want anyone to forget about the school shooting. So let's talk Uvalde. Don't forget it. Keep the conversation going because really it needs to stop. My family was in Parkland. And I was already upset about school shootings. But to learn that your cousins are in the school, that a shooting happened and their friends died, and the PTSD for all those families. It's 4 years later now, right? 5 years later, the PTSD, it's real. It's still there. It doesn't go away. I can look for a quote from my cousin, their mom, that she sent to me, and I'll read that once I find it. Does that make anybody change? The people in Parkland have been impacted. I'm sure there's people there that kind of moved on, but they've really been impacted. The people in Texas, in Uvalde, in Columbine, in Connecticut, oh my gosh, almost everywhere in this country, suddenly they become anti-gun, but enough people aren't. Do you not know someone who's been impacted by a shooting at this point? Kind of like 9/11 in New York. On Long Island, everybody knows somebody that's been impacted by 9/11. Everybody on Long Island, 8.5 million people, knows one another somehow, some way. Everybody knows somebody. Nobody likes terrorism. We don't want that to happen here. Have we done anything, though, to make a difference in any of these issues? I see now says
You kind of did like a trifecta in regards to getting people to eat, to go vegan, because not only are you reducing the amount of animals that are slaughtered for unnecessary reasons, but you're also reducing the use of plastic, packaging. All of that affects the environment. There's the disconnect. In regards to Uvalde school shootings, I'm the generation of Columbine. When that happened, the drills that were done at my school, it was the most terrifying thing. We had to prepare. I mean, I had people that I knew going to high school with that had friends that had passed at the school shooting from Columbine. There's a connection to every single aspect in some type of way, and I don't understand, besides there should not be the fact that there is the younger and younger and younger that they're being murdered.
Mommy, are you done?
Sorry. They're being murdered.
Mommy, are you done?
No, hi. I'm not done yet. There's a
Mommy, can you sit down?
okay. There was a so sorry. There was a town hall, and they had it where the parents and the children that watched it with their own eyes to see their friends killed were like, we don't want to go to school. Their PTSD is, there's no reason for someone so young to have to experience that. There's no parent, no sibling, no child themselves. With the Texas shooting, of course, it goes even beyond that because they just released the more footage from that, and police playing on their cell phones, going the opposite direction when the shooter is. And I'm like, hey, like there's racism is involved in this case. and
Right.
negligence.
Good time.
So yeah, and then what was the third thing you said? I'm sorry.
You're asking me to remember what I said. That's a little out of control.
There you have,
Terrorism.
yes. In regards to, I used to live in New York. When 9/11 happened, my mother was actually traveling to Nigeria. We hadn't heard from her. So I came in the door on the television that was in a living room and opened the door and just saw towers and like what's going on, and then a plane. And we hadn't heard from my mom. So we were in panic mode. We were like, oh my God, she's in the plane. We didn't know. Even though she was okay, like we heard something, because the planes themselves were trying to keep people from panic because news was breaking. So it was popping up on people's phone. Like that's what she was telling us when she did reach through to us. Be you there or be you anybody who has somewhat even technically visited New York feels some type of connection. Everybody was affected, be you here in the United States or around the world. Like it was a big impact. We're feeling what's happening right now around the world. It's a global effect. We need to have that same united we stand, united as one, come together and do whatever is needed to prevent crises. I know, again, overwhelming. We're in multiple. I mean, there's not one where you can take a breather and another one happens.
We couldn't come together to fight a virus
Yeah.
in the whole world, not just in the United States, but across the whole world. We couldn't come in the modern nations could not come together to fight a virus. So how in the world are we supposed to fight climate change as a world to say, here's these problems? Now, I feel like weather is a little bit more obvious than a virus that affects some people, doesn't affect others, makes people more sick than others. Some people just have sniffles. The people say, though, it's nothing. And then, as you know, Steven's downstairs really sick from COVID right now. And I'm upstairs wearing a mask in the house, as I take care of him. I had COVID. I didn't really get that sick. So it affects people differently. And we didn't need to get COVID to be afraid of it. Before I'm vegan. So I get it. My cousin's quote, when I asked her, somebody was in a shooting and asked me to get some help for like their friend who was in a shooting in South Carolina at the mall that happened like a few months ago. And I said, well, I'll ask my cousin, because she said, I know that your cousin's family went through this. Can they give any advice? So I wrote to her and she wrote back, I don't have a straight roadmap to any answers. It's 4 years later and we are still finding our way. Every time there's a shooting, they're still finding their way. That's it. Those kids, those 10-year-old kids, every time there's a shooting, PTSD will be triggered. Every single time. There's been how many since Uvalde? There's been significant number of shootings since. I'm not a jaded person. Dillip, who's been commenting through this whole thing. So hi, Dillip. I'm sorry that we haven't actually addressed directly what you've been writing, because there's a lot. But he's one of the most positive person on the planet. And I'm normally not so negative. But when it comes to this issue, we're going to live in heat. We're going to live with storms. We're going to live with fires. We're going to live with really horrible storms like hurricanes and tornadoes and earthquakes and volcanoes erupting and wind and drought
and water.
Hunger.
Waves.
Tsunamis. Mm-hmm. Right. That's the way in Hawaii. I saw that. I mean, I don't know. We're all vegan, so we kind of look at that and go, okay, I'm willing to do something. I already am. But how do I keep saying, how do we make you who's watching this, who's like, that vegan thing's too hard. 115 degrees is hard. Are you a free? Do you have enough freedom and privilege to not have to leave your house? Rebecca, I've seen your toady or turtle thing for a while. But unmute though.
I have had a lot of thoughts since y'all have been sharing, and one of them is, of course, that we have to listen to each other because we may be in vulnerable places, and we have Indigenous people more and more going vegan, whether they use those words or not. Hereditary Chief Phil Lane became vegan, and as he shared with us, he said all of the tribes that he works with, and he's on Wikipedia, he reaches hundreds of people. He said that's their basic instinct, their basic, most of them's lives is to not harm if you don't have to, and so, but it's not good to go in and tell somebody else this is what you need to do, especially when they have been told and told and told and ignored and ignored and ignored. But we also need to let people know that we can't, it's not a fast adaptation. It has to be a fast adaptation. We have to change quickly. Looking at the data from the World Wildlife Fund, it looks like there will be no wildlife vertebrates by 2026. And they measured that starting in 1970 with a 3% loss every year. And so if we keep doing what we're doing, then of course we will be at zero. So these last four, they only show the results every 4 years. Well, these last 4 years have included the Trump administration and Bolsonaro and all, because it's worldwide. And right now we've lost 68% of what we've had since 1970. So in September, a new report will come up and we shall see how much more we have lost. And then what will it take for people to see, no, it's not 2040, it's not 2060, it's what can we do now so that we can not have a 2026 without wildlife.
It's 2022.
Yes.
I know. Ellen, 4 years. Kelly, it's something positive.
I'm looking at what Dilt was writing, and that, more people are changing their diets just a little bit. So I did want to say something like semi-positive, because I know the topic was like, how can we shrink our carbon footprint? And when I was researching for this topic, I went to Extinction Rebellion and I went to Project Drawdown to see what they are saying about food. And both of them do talk about reducing plant-rich diet, like Project Drawdown's number one is food waste, like solutions, top solution, number one is food waste, number two is a plant-rich diet. For Extinction Rebellion, number one, I can't remember what number one was, number two was eat less meat, right? But so people are like, they're so afraid of saying the message because it's going to turn people off. Reduce a little bit, we need to stop it, right? So we just it's frustrating because it's finally being talked about. I know it's being talked about with like Greenpeace and like all these other organizations that for the longest time, as we saw with Cowspiracy, don't want to talk about it. They're finally talking about it, but it's still with this like tiptoe massage, like don't upset the masses message. And we need we can't have that. We're not going to have a world to live in if that is our message. Like Meatless Monday, I know Renee from Rowdy Girl, she always says this, like the Meatless Monday message has been going on for decades now. Like it's meatless every day. We need meatless every day.
I think we just have to scream it. Do videos. Have everybody do videos. Just, from being in the mainstream media, it's just so bizarre now how things have changed. So we have to be that voice. We just have to.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a movie called Eating Our Way to Extinction which is worth seeing. And there is a climate scientist, Gerard Bishop, who has just been booked with the next VCOP conference, Vegan Convergence of the Peoples. Gerard Bishop, a climate scientist from Australia, he understands the meat situation, and hopefully he will explain it to people. So that's coming up.
You guys are going to have to excuse me. There's a cougar, a Florida cougar outside.
Oh my goodness!
Can't you just move the camera so we can see the cougar?
You know what?
Wow.
I mean, come on. Don't you want to see a cougar that's just running around Florida?
I really kind of do.
They're so rare.
I really kind of do.
But that cougar won't be alive in 4 years.
Right.
So we won't be able to see the cougar outside her door. You know, it's interesting. We spent a lot of time at Disney, as you know, and we went on the safari at Animal Kingdom. And Disney does a good job of taking care of the animals and conservation. And, you know, their whole thing is they want to see animals survive. But when you're finishing, the driver talks a little bit about straws and recycling. And each time I say to myself, go vegan. I just say the words out loud. I was like, and go vegan. Take the next logical step if you want to save these animals that people are in awe of seeing. The lions and the cheetahs and the elephants and the giraffes and the all different types of, you know, antelope animals, because there's so many. They know. That's the thing is Disney knows, because Disney is one of the most vegan friendly places on the planet to go to. So they know the connection. I should probably write to them. And say, have your drivers say, stop eating these animals.
Right.
That you're so enamored that you want your children to see, because it's too expensive to go to Africa. You know, not many people can afford that trip to go to a safari. You know, I mean, no.
Disney, if you're looking at like future generations, the kiddos are the best ones to, and it's not programming. It's not indoctrinating. You're trying, just because you can't see it, that you have a veil over your eyes. Don't imply that on children. Children are not stupid. If you show them and they know what's going on, you know, so even with my little ones, they watch National Geographic on Disney Plus. There's like 2 documentaries on there that discuss climate change and what is happening, and they will sit there and I watch it with them to explain. If you ask them, you know, and say, why are you vegan? And they'll tell you the reasons why. And they know we have to do it also for people too. It's a form of like educating and literally being loud. Kelly said it. Ellen said it. Look, I have ADHD, so sometimes I'm just rambling and talking out loud anyway. So when I have that moment of catching someone and letting them know, and you're not yelling at them, it's almost kind of like very fine line. Because if you're like being assertive, which we need to be, there's no more, you know, sugarcoating anything. You have people that are still going to be hesitant, unfortunately, because maybe they had a prior interest and it was rubbed the wrong way due to being too assertive and saying this is how you have to do it. So now we have to literally reintroduce in a way that we know how to. When you go to the store, you know, anytime I see anybody of interest who's in the section with vegan items or looking for meat alternatives, I'm talking it up, letting them know here are your interests and why it's important. Disney does have a World Goth Day, the entire park, and they do have for October, of course, for Halloween. So I want to say I'm really proud of the goth community, because we are majority vegan or vegetarian, but more vegans. And we've been doing a lot of speaking. I did, like, you know, the podcast with my friends, William and Sarah, of Bellwether Syndicate. We're doing anything and everything that we can. And if you're going to write Disney, I think that that's actually a good idea, because we take over that park on that day in mass. You have to buy tickets in advance. If we say for this day, make it vegan all across the board, I can assure you that you're going to have people that are coming because of the curiosity of Goth Day, because baby bats come too, so little kids. they're going to take something and be like, this is really cool. I didn't know about this nor this. Introduction in any way that you are able to do it. Be you a small platform, be it just talking to your friends on the floor, on the phone. I try and do as best as I can to get that out there with followers, and TikTok is great. Ellen said, use social media now. TikTok is like the platform for anything and getting that out there. So whoever has it, there's a big influencers don't want to do it. They just want to stand there and dance. I'm like, you're gonna be dancing on coals or fire in a minute, or have nothing to dance to. You have to understand this affects you. Use your
Platform.
Yes, to put the message out there. They're going to listen. That's what influencers are. If you're doing it in a positive light, they're going to take that. So I think there's just a lot of mainstream. So hitting upon Disney, hitting upon just TikTok, and you do see it. There's a huge vegan TikTok community, major. So I think that as long as we start expanding more on just talking about or showing making dishes and how great it is to make a vegan version, take a couple of ones and explain certain things, because it's reality and it can't be hidden. It can't be, through, rose-colored glasses. That's not where we are anymore.
So now I want to know what that date is for the goth at Disney, and to Dilla, TikTok is for everybody. Have you not gotten sucked into the videos on Facebook? I just sit and Steven will listen to me and I'll just be laughing and just watching and laughing. And then sometimes I'm like, you've got to see this. There's a lot of baby announcements of boy or girl or not telling you, which always intrigue me. And then there's the babies, but there's some really funny stuff. I'm not doing that. There's just certain things that I just won't do. I have a friend, another food philosopher in Indiana, uses TikTok to promote plant-based eating. Yes, it's a great, TikTok is fantastic. People love to be on video. Well, look at us. Who's up? Kelly, you've been patient.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just going to go back to what you were saying, Helene, about plastic, because, again, talking about like the whole, reduce your meat, or they'll say stop eating beef. So people move to fish. So people are talking about plastic, but what they don't know is half the plastic in our oceans is fish equipment. It's from the fishing industry. It's nets. It's all the other stuff from the fishing industry. And they're not, and people are just going to start eating more fish, which we already know what it's doing to our ocean floors. We're decimating our oceans, right? And we're encouraging people to eat more fish. So like right now we have this bread company. They changed their little plastic thing to cardboard. And all my friends on Facebook are just going crazy, posting a picture about like, it's not, yay, but no, this is not solving climate change. For those of you that are posting it and you're not vegan, stop it, right?
Yeah, I wanted to bring it back to something positive, but also something that's very obvious. We're all concerned about Europe being so hot, and of course the heat around here, but I have two contacts, one in Ethiopia and one in Uganda, and the situations there are dire. The heat, the starvation in Uganda, they just lost 50 people yesterday from starvation. And so they are vegan. Well, one of them is vegan. In Uganda, he's vegan, and he has a school that he's trying to make be vegan. He's talking about compassion for animals, and it's called Love for All Uganda. And so we're sending money to try to help feed those people, because right now he said they are eating dung to try to get some nutrition. And so when we think about how uncomfortable it is that we don't have a luxury, and I'm there too, then it's good to be mindful of the people who are suffering due to our overuse and overconsumption. So I just want to share that aspect also. Thank you.
Ellen,
Yeah, just going back to make sure I am unmuted.
you are. You're good.
About mercury, where I live here in the Sarasota area, they have some fishing villages, and a lot of old-time fishermen are around, and they've talked about how the mercury levels have caused, from eating the fish, have caused nerve damage, and they're really able to trace that. So, if people say, give me the fish argument, I go, oh, you want a little plastic and mercury with your fish? I think that there have been studies now that show that there is pretty much mercury in all kinds of fish. It used to be just the bottom feeders, but now they've all got it. So just another part of what we're doing, and the message that we need to be getting out there with regard to TikTok and older people. I was sponsored by this organization that is the largest, called Get Set Up, the largest online free platform of classes for seniors, people over 50 is the way they define it. And they asked me to do just tons of videos, and they're packaging it up and doing all the social media for me on their platforms. But TikTok is the biggest one, and they've done all the editing and stuff. And I asked the same question: who my age watches it? And they said, you wouldn't believe. So, and a lot of these platforms, they can post on multiple platforms, like we're doing at the same time. So, don't discount that for sure. And just a short message. You all are all eloquent. You could do videos just sitting at your desk. Doesn't have to be anything fancy.
It's like 20 seconds, 30 seconds, maybe a minute max. It's like it's the perfect platform for Americans.
Right.
That's about the attention span of somebody. Oh, that's great. And you're almost like, oh, wish that was longer. But then you're on to the next one. You can get sucked into that hole for hours if you let yourself. Still try it. It's on Facebook. Just go and watch the little videos.
And you guys both, you touched upon it. When you'll think, who's going to even look at it because of age? The amount of young people who follow because they're like, we are learning. We didn't know. But also the amount of older people, the generations learning from us, and just being proud of, some of these generations saying, they're ruthless. It's like, what do we have to lose? We have to address this. We have to do it. It's 15 seconds, 15 seconds, 60 seconds, 3 minutes. But the good thing is that you can post a 10-minute video now. When, Roe v. Wade happened, I made a video, and I was like, well, this wasn't the first video that I wanted to place, but I need to say something. It had views. It reached who it was supposed to reach, but it wasn't for the sake of, oh, I'm going to do it to build my audience. One video where I heard someone who's running for office and what they stated, and I just immediately went off in Igbo Nigerian language. Just started going off. That video hit 11.4K and has been shared everywhere. And I was like, I just said, shut up. I was going off, but I was angry, and the passion was real because it was off the cuff. The other thing that was saying is that it can build. Don't look at necessarily the numbers. Some people, when they go on there, my mom's on TikTok now, and she is a motivational speaker, and she's an author. She's done work with the UN a lot for women and children and HIV/AIDS. And she didn't think that she would fit. I was like, we're going to help you because there's certain things that you can do to get out there, but you don't need a theater style production of a video to have that people just share it all the way around. Just like we're doing right now, record something, place it. And then that's it. As soon as you do that, it'll share everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, because those social media platforms are now kind of trying to become TikTok because they see that is the standard now. So to keep their relevance, they're making it easy to share. And because of that, you reach more people who may not have all of the platforms. You may have one or two. It's still going to reach them. So even stitching, that's become a big thing. Duets, you don't have to say anything. Find any articles, anything that would be on veganism, on animal agriculture, on what's happening with the climate, and just your reaction to the video as it's playing. Because you're duetting that other person, their audience is seeing it. They're going to see what you have. They're going to want to know more. Any way to get it out, be you in person, be you social media, use it and make it work. And yeah, it's definitely something to do. And I quickly want to touch upon what Rebecca, what you said in regards to Ethiopia. So technically Africa was majority plant-based. It was only for necessity in regards to meat. And everything is grown via the farm. The good news is that the majority of African countries gave Monsanto a hell no. Because they tried to come there and say, oh, we want to, they said, get out, go, and veganism and like festivals are starting to pop up even more now, especially in Nigeria. It's the young people that are doing it, especially ones that are Nigerian, but they're in the UK right now, so they were born there or they're back home and they're coming back and forth, but it was never too foreign. Western influence, rather Western interference, caused it where a lot of what we knew culturally, where there was a unity with animals, and only if it was necessary, be it during a ceremony or whatnot, had turned into trying to intrude. And I'm glad that there is a backed off. Unfortunately, you have to look at leadership. Sometimes getting them out is the key, because just like here, they can put a halt and stop anything and everything, and it'd be one person or two people to do that. But yeah, I do what you were saying with Ethiopia. Drought is a big problem, because that kills off the animals, so it kills off the food. It affects more than people. The blinders need to open up.
Yeah.
It's not just about you.
Good luck with that. And then still was wondering, like, if something's so short, would people take it so seriously? Well, that's exactly it. There's enough. You have enough information that people may go and look for more on the same thing, because it's the perfect amount of time for someone to have interest. Mm-hmm. And the more interesting you are, or funny you are, or whatever it is, it's genius. It's genius for people with like no attention span.
Yeah, exactly.
To reach them on any topic, and people are really funny. and when you put a camera in front of somebody's face, what they're willing to do on camera forever, and then post it on social media forever, it's not lost on me. It's not lost on me that this conversation is forever on social media until Facebook goes away. But it's on YouTube, and then YouTube would have to go away. It's not lost. So, any final comments? Because we're over. It's a great conversation. Anyone want to say anything?
Does the Vegan Stew have a TikTok?
No, Triangle Veg Fest does though. It's really Marshall. It's really Marshall. Yeah. Marshall the brown-nosed dog. TikTok. Now I'm thinking of what's it called? Of the Hunger Games. TikTok.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Dylan. If I don't know many people, it's only because I've seen the movies a million times that I can quote any type of quote from any movie. Anyone else have anything to say? Have I made any TikToks still up? I've done most of the TikToks on Triangle Veg Fest, outside of me promoting Kathy Hester and like another brand, are of Marshall the brown-nosed dog. So that's what's on my TikTok. Let me see. Was it is really Marshall mean? Oh, that's my dog. So, and then Dilip, thanks for taking time to make and present your show. Thank you so much, Dilip. And Dilip has a show, just so we know, is so many kids in the kitchen and so many cooks in the kitchen. You can definitely go check that out. It's really neat. They all over the country, either the kids are cooking and they pass off recipes, or the adults are cooking and they have topics like they'll have like onions as one of the, what's the word? It's later. So like it's all around onions, all the recipes and everything that they'll be doing, and they're food for life. So we're talking about whole foods, plant-based, not just vegan. So SOS, sugar, oil, salt is limited in the recipes if they're there at all. And that's, here you go, somebodykooks.com/shows. Definitely want to check that out. And those happen a few times a month. They're really neat. They're really Food for Life. If you don't know Food for Life, definitely check that out. That's pcrm.org. So let's see. How many more people can we plug? Let's see. Anybody else?
Yeah, can I plug
Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if I was muted. Can I just plug Climate Healers? Because I know BJ was talking about the VCOP that's coming up. There is a sort of a sub part of Climate Healers called Food Healers. Sailesh's goal is to feed the world one day, and that's November 17th. I think, is that right, Rebecca? November 17th?
19th.
19th. So yeah, if there's anyone that is interested in helping out with that, that's the goal. It's an ambitious goal, but like you're saying, if we can't feed the world one day, like we're screwed, right? And I mean, and it's all going to be vegan food, obviously. But yeah, just to raise awareness of, like, healthy plant-based food really should just be human, right?
Exactly. Kimberly, go ahead.
All right, take a second to unmute. So just Kelly, what you just said there, you said plant-based, and then you said we really should say vegan. And I've been thinking this for the last few minutes. Vegan somehow has become a bad word, and we have to people are afraid of vegan. Don't tell people to go vegan. But plant-based sure is helpful, but veganism encompasses all of it. It's not just about what we're eating. It's about the products we're using. It's the entertainment we consume. People keep going to SeaWorld. They're going to keep capturing animals to feature at SeaWorld. So we have to find a way to show people that vegan isn't bad. We're not all judgy. We're not all jerks. We're not going to make you do things you don't want to do. We're going to help you open your eyes so you can choose to change your life and change the world around you, which, as we know, changes the world around those people, and we can keep making it bigger and bigger. So I encourage all of us, and I know that this group is good with that. We're not afraid of the word vegan, right? And we will show people that it's a good thing, but it's so important that we don't just be like, oh, go plant-based. No. We've got to do it all of it. There we go.
There we go. Just one of Ellen's books. No.
People care most about their wallets.
Of course. You hit it right on the head, Kimberly. There is, unfortunately, literally a lot of damage control that the vegan community has to do for vegans who have just screwed it up by their delivery, by their arrogance, by their overbearing, by their aggressiveness. It's a turnoff. And then, so we have to make sure that, I guess I say we would not, I don't want to say like the new faces, but our approach to change people's minds. And then also letting them know, of course, the difference between plant-based and veganism. But I will say something that's interesting. When someone does go plant-based, they tend to want to research more, which leads them to veganism. Because they're like, we've already come into this. There's got to be more to it. Something will eventually click. They're like, okay, my health is good. I feel better. Something else is coming into play. You may have people that immediately will watch like Cowspiracy or watch What the Health or watch Earthlings, and they're like, it's a done deal. And you have some people who are still not going to even grasp it. But again, it's like how you would definitely approach and deliver that to people, and you do it the best that you can. And it's all about education. I'm not saying that you're like, you coddle them, but you have to understand too that they may have that, unfortunately, where we're seen as like, because of how they've been approached or their interest. Same thing in regards, doesn't even matter like what your race within the vegan community. I can't connect with the African American community. They're aggressive to people coming in. So when I'm may say something, you have to watch and listen to them, because then that's the same way that you're able to kind of get into each other's world and views and say, I got you. I never looked at it like this. You're nice. You're not. I don't want to go ahead and slam a door in your face. So it's like, I want to learn more now. I introduced several people first to what veganism was. I had a couple of friends that, yeah, it was a clear switch. It's great to find musicians, especially like within certain genres, that are also, vegan themselves. So it was really cool to just click. But I introduced a few of my friends to plant-based, and they were like, oh, I want to watch it. I said, Earthlings. It's hard to watch that movie. My mom could not get through the first 5 minutes without bawling. And I said, it's hard, but you need to see this. I am going to put you through the grind. You need to see this. And they ended up teaching or utilizing those like in university for the ones that were younger, because I have a lot of younger people that are like, oh, cool. How do you do, college? And then even like ones that introduced and turned their family on. They took the steps and went that way. All about approach. Some people you need to get through to be an aggressive. I'm going to say that. I'm going to, with Kelly, sometimes you need to, because you don't want to hear it. It's like it's going to go through one ear out the other. Then the ones that have that negative view of us, let's meet them and work our way up. And that one person that you change their minds will talk to two. That two will talk for, and it'll build.
Exactly. Well, thank you for that. Anyone else have anything left to say? We're going to have part 2 of this in a little, like next month, I think. So we have to talk about climate. Probably another thing that needs to be monthly. So and there's so much more. There's so many more things I could say that I'm not going to, because we'll just talk about them next time if I remember. Anyone else? Rebecca, thank you. BJ, thank you so much for joining us. So you're fantastic. Let me know if you ever want to come back again. You're more than welcome. You definitely added extreme value to the discussion. And you're more than welcome anytime. And join us if you like. We're good with that. I don't think anyone would say no. Yep. Awesome. Okay, so let's close it out. Maybe you can invite that. Let me see what Dilip's saying. You can invite that amazing European activist on the show. Well, maybe we can. It's just a matter of, it's harder when it comes to Europe or Australia, because it's a lot of the time difference. When we start, Europe's asleep. So it's hard to bring anyone on that's over there, because I would love to bring on some people, but we are just, Greta. Oh, there we go. I'm blanking on her name. There we go. Yes. So let me say thank you to Ellen and to Rebecca and Kimberly and Bud Kelly on Nose. So yes. Okay. Thanks, Dilip. It was Greta that you were thinking of. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for hopefully helping to spread the word on how important climate is, global warming, climate change, the impact on the environment, what you can do to make a difference. Sorry if I went more on the negative side of things. Thanks, Stella. Always good to have you watch the show. And please share this far and wide. Share all our shows far and wide. Thank you, Susan. That would be great. We'd love the exposure and for people to hear what we have to say, because it's important and we want the planet to last. I want everyone to be healthy. I want everyone to be kind. And I just happen to have a mask up here tonight because I'm wearing it in my house, because we're the COVID house at the moment. So you know what? The variant that's out there, it's pretty nasty. Well, you don't want to get it. And if you can do something to make a difference, one of the things is you can wear a mask. You can get vaccinated if you're not. We're in a trial of Novavax. And Novavax has now officially been approved, emergency approved by the FDA in the United States. Everywhere else had already approved it. It's what I have in me for the last couple of years. Get it. If you've been waiting for a vaccine that's more familiar to you, that's like a flu shot, that's what Novavax is. And in a couple of weeks, you'll be able to get that. And I know a lot of people have been waiting for it. So if that's you, and that's what it takes to get you vaccinated against this virus that keeps mutating to something that could be absolutely horrendous and potentially kill the human race, then climate change won't matter, because we'll die from COVID or some other virus, because guess what? We didn't even bring that up. Viruses stem from animal agriculture and from animals and how we treat them and how we keep them. That's why we have COVID. So that's a whole, we'll talk about that next month. Now remember, go to virtualvegfestlive.com, enter the contest, win 9 prizes from our sponsors. Really cool. Upload a photo that's creative that includes one of our sponsors. Really neat. We'll be back next week at 7 p.m. Let me tell you about Mondays is Kimberly. Fireside Chat with Kimberly at 7 p.m. Tuesday, Ellen and I are doing a show at 2 p.m. Join us, Vegan on a Budget, plus more. Whatever happens in that 20 minutes. Tune in to find out. Bring your questions and comments. Yoga is kind of weird right now. It happened this Tuesday, and then it'll be back next month at least. And then Wednesdays, Vegan Stew at 7 p.m., except for the first Wednesday of the month. First Wednesday of the month is Coach Kayla to talk about your health and nutrition. She's a registered dietitian. So definitely tune in for that every first Wednesday of the month. Outside of that, we'll keep adding shows and keep letting us know what you like. And let's see, Dylan went off to eat a dish that his daughter made, which is great and is amazing. Be kind, be gentle with one another. It's a rough world. And go vegan. Not whole food plant-based. You can do that too for your health, but go vegan for the animals and for the planet and for your health. And we'll see you soon. Bye.